Hello, everyone, and welcome today to today's webinar, Reducing the Risk of Falls by Removing Environmental Hazards, an Evidence-Based Approach. Today's webinar is facilitated by the Loop Fall Prevention Community of Practice. My name is Michelle Dukeman. I am the manager for the Fall Prevention Program at Parachute. I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items next, but while I do that, we'd love to see who is joining us today. If you can, in the chat box, please let us know your role, organization, and your location. That will give us a good sense of who's joining today. And I'll let you know that we're going to be using the chat box later in the presentation. Our presenter is going to ask for some feedback there as well. So please now share your role, organization, and location, and feel free to interact using it later as well. All right, time for housekeeping. During the webinar, if you do have questions about the tech or general comments, you can type them into the chat box. My colleague Marguerite will be monitoring this space. If you have specific questions for our presenter about their presentation and its content, submit those through the Q&A box that appears at the bottom of the Zoom window. Questions for our presenter will be answered at the end of the webinar, and you'll be able to view questions you have asked, but not questions posed by other participants. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent to all participants in a few days, along with the link to the presentation slides. As a reminder, you can access presentation slides and rewatch all Loop webinar recordings via the Loop website or on our YouTube channel. Today is our third and final webinar in our Move, Improve, Remove webinar series, celebrating the new posters that are available for download at no cost across Canada. Each webinar focused on one of the three posters' calls to action: Move Your Body, Improve Your Health, and today, Removing Hazards. Here's a little bit more about those posters, which I'll circulate this information with the post-webinar package, but they're available in French and English. They're targeted towards older adults, and they're designed to be posted in a variety of settings, like hospitals, long-term care and retirement facilities, community buildings, wherever you think they may be of use. And they were launched as part of Fall Prevention Month, but they are relevant all year round. So please do continue to use those. And many of you on the line may already be Loop members, but for those who are not, we encourage you to sign up. Loop is the no-cost online communication platform for fall prevention community of practice members. Loop brings together its members across Canada to problem solve and discuss how to implement evidence-informed and promising practices in fall prevention. Listed on the slide here are just a few of the services that Loop provides. And as a reminder, the webinar recording link and presentation slides will be posted on Loop in a few days. I'd like now to introduce our presenter. Nancy Edwards is a distinguished professor and School of Nursing at University of Ottawa. Her professional interests are in the field of public health and population health. She's conducted research on fall prevention for nearly 30 years and is currently a board member with the Family Councils of Ontario and CARP's Ottawa chapter. She also chairs the Fall Prevention Working Group for CARP Ottawa. You can find a complete bio for Nancy on Loop, and without further ado, please take it away, Nancy. You may now share your screen.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Michelle. I see we have people from across the country and even a few people from international sites. So very pleased to meet all of you virtually. I'm in the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe people, the city of Ottawa, and very much looking forward to sharing some ideas with you and to hearing from you as well. So let's just hope that the little technology step here works fine. I'm just trying to get it to go from the beginning. Let's see. Well, we'll do it this way. So I'm going to be talking about environmental hazards today. And I see that we have many occupational and physiotherapists and others on the call. So I'm sure that many of you have a lot of experiences that you would like to share with us. I'm going to be taking a population health approach. And basically, this means that we're thinking about how to modify the environment to reduce the risk of falls for the entire population and or for population subgroups. And this includes both those at higher risk of falls and those at lower risk of falls. So this is where it differs from, but it's complementary to our more common clinical approaches, where we try to screen individuals to determine if they are at high risk or medium risk for falls, and then we intervene with those individuals. I think probably everybody on the line knows that falls are very costly for health systems. Something that I think we don't emphasize enough is that falls are costly for all age groups. And this is data from the Parachute report, which shows injury data from 2018. And you can see that for 3 of the 4 age groups, children, adults, and seniors, falls were the highest cost of injuries. Youth and young adults had a higher cost of transportation incidents, but falls were also an issue for them, just not as high a cost as for the other age groups. And I like to show this slide because I think it points to a serious problem that we've got. What we're seeing in the area of falls is that the incidence rate is going up. This is true both in Canada and the United States. And even when you take into account the fact that the population is aging, overall, we're seeing an increase in the incidence of falls and injuries and fatalities from falls. Just contrast that with the graph that you see on the right-hand side of this slide, where over the same time period, we've seen a huge decline, both in fatalities and serious injuries from motor vehicle accidents. So what is it that they're getting right in the transportation sector that we're not getting right in the health sector? Those declines in motor vehicle accidents are largely due to a number of changes that have been made in vehicles, but also changes specifically to the environment where people drive, like traffic calming techniques and others. Falls are often multifactorial, if not always. We've known this for a very long time, and there are many studies that show that the environment is implicated in about 1/3 of all falls among seniors. But the focus often has been on these other risk factors. And while those are important, it's the environment I'm going to focus on today. So how does the built environment affect our risk of falls? Well, first of all, we are constantly interacting with the built environment. And there's something that is called environmental press, which occupational and physiotherapists know very well. And this is where the environment actually challenges us. And the environment can over-challenge us, which can be a problem, or it can under-challenge us, which is also a problem because we need that environmental press to help us stay physically healthy. But there are features of the built environment where the environmental press is too much that increase the risk of falls. For example, transition points are often difficult to navigate. This could be because there's a change in lighting that happens. Think about going from outside to inside, from your ground floor to your basement. There's a change in surface friction, which changes the traction that you've got with the soles of your feet or your shoes. There may be obstacles on walking paths. Steps and stairs are very common transition points. The environment can also offer miscues, and I'll show you some examples of those in a few minutes, where it is suggesting to our vision and perhaps to our tactile senses and so on that some change is going to happen in the environment, but the change that actually happens doesn't match the cue that we got. And then we can have environmental features that are very physically demanding, requiring a shift in our body position, our center of gravity, requiring us to maintain or restore our balance, like when we step into a bathtub or have to use our body weight to open a heavy door, or an increase in effort, like going up or down steps or stairs.
Nancy, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to see if we can try and troubleshoot the slide size.
Let me just try this and see if that works. I just tried something else. Does that work?
That works. Yeah. Now we're seeing just the slide in its full size.
Very good. Thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you.
So here's an example of a very commonly used checklist. This one was developed in the Champlain district, but versions of this are used all across the country, and there are other types of examples. This is getting at the personal risk factors. I really like the column that says why the risk factor matters, so people understand that. But there's virtually nothing in this checklist that asks about the environment. So we've got a gap there. Along with some colleagues a few years ago, we actually looked at the environmental hazard checklists that are available in the literature, and we found 42 different ones, most in published articles, some in the gray literature. But unlike that Champlain district checklist I just showed you, none of these environmental hazard checklists were widely used. There was a lot of inconsistencies across them. For example, which rooms were assessed, whether or not they included indoor and outdoor stairs and steps, how responses were coded. There was very few checklists that really even implicitly examined person-environment fit and that environmental press issue that I just spoke about. And we were very interested in the assessment of bathrooms and stairs, and found that most of the checklists didn't focus on structural hazards in bathrooms like grab bars. They might ask about bath mats, they might ask about lighting, but not about actual grab bars or structural supports for the installation of grab bars. And those for stairs and steps often asked about things like clutter on stairs, but didn't get at the construction geometry of stairs, like the dimensions of the treads, whether or not there were open risers, and so on. So why focus on stair and bathroom falls, which is going to be the bulk of my presentation today? Well, first of all, we know that injury rates from falls on stairs and in bathrooms are much higher than injury rates from falls in other locations, 65% versus 25% overall. We also know that when safety improvements are made, like the installation of grab bars, that it provides both short and long-term benefits. And once that change is made, it's made. You don't have to keep reminding people to use their bath mat, for example, as an example of a behavior change. You can put in that structural change and it's permanently there. We also know that stairs and bathrooms are essential for day-to-day living. It's not like it's optional to use your bathroom. And safety modifications can actually improve visitability of homes for all age groups. So the problem of falls on stairs and in bathrooms is big, and it's costly, and the evidence for prevention is strong. This is an example of the type of evidence that is out there. This is a work that's been done in New Zealand, one of their first cluster randomized controlled trials, where they actually made home modifications and paid for them. And you can see a list of the kinds of modifications that were made. This was for people not necessarily with any physical disability. They installed handrails, in some cases put in ramps, added slip-resistant surfacing, and so on. And they looked at the rate of falls at home per person per year that needed medical treatment, and found that after adjusting for age and many other confounders, that the injuries specific to the home modifications had actually reduced the risk of falls by almost 40%. This study has been replicated more recently with Maori people in New Zealand with very, very similar findings. So now I'd like to offer you the opportunity to add some things in the chat. These are common concerns and views that I've heard from research, from discussions with clients, discussions with health providers, discussions with renovators, and so on, about things that discourage people from making environmental modifications. They're not necessarily in any priority order, but these commonly come up. It's too expensive. Making renovations to my home is a hassle. I can't find a reliable renovator. I don't think my landlord or my strata council or my board will allow me to actually make any changes. Often people haven't asked, but that's their impression. A change might reduce property value. I'm not old enough and I'm healthy. I don't need to make any changes yet. I hear that often. I like the way my home is, and I know where the hazards are and I can avoid them. So add other cons to making changes that you've heard in the chat, if you don't mind. Let's look at the pro side of the equation. Well, I want to stay in my home. I want to age in place and I want to be safe. I want to reduce my risk of an injurious fall. Perhaps I want my home to be more visitable for friends and family. Changes I'm starting to experience in my health status, and this can be at any age, are making it more difficult to navigate around my home. I've had a recent fall. Sometimes that is sort of a reminder that people are feeling vulnerable. A health provider or a family member has suggested I make a change or changes that make me feel safer. And again, I invite you to add pros that you have heard in your work and in your lived experience. So let's go to stairs. What we know is that over 50% of Canadians 55 and older actually have difficulty climbing stairs. So that's a pretty common. And of course, as you get older, often it's more challenging. And stairs are actually the main reason for people needing to move or restricting their where they live in their two-story home, for example, to a single floor, the main floor. However, most Canadians want to age in place. We know that both indoor and outdoor stairs are common locations for falls. And if you think about falls on stairs, you don't spend very much time going up and down stairs in a day. So when you take in the actual exposure time, the time spent on stairs, stairs show up as being among the most hazardous of environmental features. And about 10% of all injury costs due to falls across all age groups are on stairs. This is the anatomy of a staircase, and I'm just going to use a few of these terms. I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page here. A baluster is what helps to provide a guard function on your handrails. The tread is what you step on. It's also sometimes called a run. The riser is the height of the stair, and the newel post helps to hold the handrail in place. And those are the ones that I'll be referring to in my examples. There are many common correctable stair design faults. Non-uniform stairs is one, and this quote is actually from the building code. So you can see that when builders construct stairs, they're allowed a very minimal tolerance for changes between one stair and the next to try to reduce this non-uniformity problem. Risers can be too high or they can be open. And if risers are open, there's no backing there, basically. It means that when you step on that stair, you may actually project your foot beyond the tread, and that can trip you up as you continue up the stairs. There may be insufficient landings, or they're not large enough, and that can be at the top or bottom of stairs or even midway. Insufficient or variable lighting, commonly no toggle switch, so you have to go down the stairs, for example, to turn on the lights for the stairs or vice versa. Surface materials that are used may provide inadequate slip resistance, and there's a lot of issues with handrails. And of all the things I have listed here, other than lighting, I would say handrails are the ones that are most easy and least expensive to correct. And I'll show you many examples of these, but they can be totally absent. There may be only one handrail when really you need two. Discontinuities in those handrails, tactile cues that are problematic, size and shape that don't allow a power grip, or improper heights. So let's look at some examples from the community. Here's a woman volunteering for Meals on Wheels. She's going up these stairs. There is no landing. She actually has to open that door towards her while she's standing on the stairs and trying to maintain her balance. There's a handrail, but it's a lousy handrail. because it's very, very small in size and doesn't allow her to get a power grip. Here's a visual miscue. This is one of the worst that I've seen, where pattern carpets make it almost impossible to see the edges of the stairs. You look down that staircase, of course, you know that there are stairs, but you can't see where the edges are. Here's another type of visual miscue where the stairs are angled and you have strips on the edge of the stairs, which is helpful, but visually what you're seeing and from a tactile point of view, when you're holding onto that handrail, your mind is trying to figure out where that walking path is for the stairs, and you're going down on an oblique angle, which is really problematic. I see this problem a lot. I'm not sure about your own communities. When I walk around my area of about 100 bungalows, most people have had interlock put in, and often the interlock has introduced a non-uniformity. So here, these original cement blocks that were part of the structure of the homes were even. The risers were the same height, but interlock was put in, and now you have differential heights of these two steps. Graspable handrails, the important thing to remember here is that the best grasp is what's called a tennis racket grip, which is a power grip. And that means that the diameter of that handrail should be between 4 to 5 centimeters. But there are many handrail issues. Here are some. Here's an example of a handrail discontinuity. The handrail stops as you arrive at the landing, and that handrail is actually much bigger than what is ideal for a power grip. Here are other handrails, and there's probably hundreds of examples of different kinds of shapes and so on that are not ideal. So this does not allow you to wrap your hand right around the handrail, so you don't get the full power grip. A plank handrail that is either horizontally laid or vertically laid, horizontally laid in this example, does not allow a power grip. If it's a vertical handrail, then you have a pincer grip, which is even weaker than what you have with a horizontal slab. Here's newel posts that create handrail discontinuities. And not only that, this was probably originally put in as a guard, but as you can see in this picture, the slope of the handrail at the top does not match the slope of the stairs. And then you have to switch to the slope of the handrail, and it's a bad handrail in terms of gripability as you get halfway down the stairs. Here's an example on the left of a long set of stairs, so high environmental press, and no landing. So that's really too many stairs in a row without a landing, and newel posts along the way, which mean that you lose your grip as you go. Here's a picture on a cruise. This handrail wasn't too bad until you got to the balusters, which were very decorative, and which meant that you had to partially release your grip on the rail. And of course, open risers and the lighting on those stairs was terrible. Basement stairs are often problematic, and of course, many people have their laundry facilities down in the basement. Part of this is because some of the early codes did not cover basement stairs or did not have very strong restrictions on stairs. But here you see an example of where the handrail is completely obstructed. It's just been installed too close to the wall, and the risers are high. The rule of thumb is a 7 to 11 rule of 7 inches for the riser and 11 inches for the tread. Here's another example, and I think what we have to be able to do and encourage our clients to do is how to spot the hazards. Typical set of basement stairs. Can you see the hazards? There's quite a few of them. So first of all, we've got wedge-shaped stairs. So the handrails, unfortunately, actually bring you down along the area where the wedge is, so that you have, for these ones, a tread that is not nearly sufficient. It would not match the 11-inch rule. You have a discontinuity in the handrails that happens as you have to navigate the wedge-shaped stairs. There's open risers and uneven lighting with no toggle switch. Here are examples from the community of non-uniform steps, often an issue at the bottom of the stairs. This actually is a picture taken of a clinic, and you can see that the risers are non-uniform. This one is much taller than the ones at the bottom. The treads are not uniform, different widths. Perhaps they had some incidents on these stairs, I don't know, but they've put on something to try to show people that they're where the edge of the stair is, but that walking path actually leads you too far away from the handrails to hold onto the handrails, and the handrails don't come to the very bottom of the steps, and they're that bad shape. Here are handrails on the ascent of stairs that are problematic. They stop halfway up. Here's an example of a handrail that is good in that it extends beyond the last step, but then there is another step with no indication that there is a subsequent step, another environmental miscue at this home. This handrail is good because it actually brings you down a walking path which is on the widest part of the tread rather than the wedge shape of the tread, but the handrail does not extend beyond the bottom step. Single steps can be a real problem. Here you've got tons of cues where there are several steps, but other than the coloring on the edge of the step, there's no handrail cue to tell you there's another step there. My mother actually fell here. These stairs have great handrails from one parking lot to the next, but you get up here and you're not expecting any step because there's nothing marked. Even small steps can result in very serious falls. I don't know the story behind this, but my guess is that somebody fell and tripped on this. A lawsuit came into the city where this is located. They put in yellow paint to try to mark it. Somebody else tripped. There was another complaint, and they put in a mega handrail to mark this very small step. Here are examples of getting it right, where the handrails extend beyond the stairs at the right height. They have tactile cues that tell you where the stairs stop and start. There are additional cues on the cement here, and this actually has a handrail that would be very suitable for young children. And here's one that's got it almost right because this extends beyond the bottom step, but in fact, there's a newel post there, which is problematic. Here's something I'm seeing more often, people attaching a handrail to the edge of their home, to their garage, which allows them, the sloping provides good tactile cues. So we've seen lots of changes to stair building codes, and there's a partial success story here, which meant that there was a strong proponent behind it. There was extensive research. Cities were worried about it in public places because they were getting lawsuits when people had a bad fall on public stairs. Recognition, I think that retrofits to improve staircase geometry are very expensive, so you've got to get it right from the time that you build. Handrails you can put in later, but staircase geometry is more difficult to fix. Consumers have a lot of experience with safer stairs, and they start to wonder, well, why is it so easy to navigate stairs in a public space that are good stairs, and I go into somebody's home and I can't navigate easily? And Parachute, when changes were put forward, developed an information package to help guide input to the Canadian Commission on Building Codes during what's called the public review process. And here are examples of changes that resulted from all of that effort. These are changes that went into legislation in Ontario in January of 22, following from the recommendations of the Canadian Commission on Building Codes. And you can see that, among other things, they increase the size of the tread, so you've got more room to put your feet, and they decreased the size of the rise, meaning that it's not so challenging to have to lift your leg up to on a high stair. So I'm going to switch now to grab bars and bathrooms and showers. And here I'd just like to show you that this is an issue across all age groups, again, as you can see on the right. And we know that about 76% of falls in bathtubs and showers occur in the home. You can see that even for 0 to 9-year-olds, the incidence of medically treated injuries is significant. So it's something we all need to be concerned about. Why grab bars? Well, they provide a point of control for safe transitions. And there's two transitions you generally have to make in a bathtub. You have to enter and exit the tub, and then you have to sit down and stand up from the bottom of the tub. When you're transitioning into showers, it may just be the entry and exit onto a different surface or over a small ledge that is pertinent. We know that when grab bars are absent, people grab onto other structures. And I'm sure you've all got examples from your clinical experience of soap dishes that have come out of walls, towel bars, people grab onto sink ledges, but they're not in the right position to support them. We know from laboratory work that people actually will at least touch the tiled surface to provide a little bit of balance for them if there is no grab bar there. And we also know that properly installed grab bars reduce the incidence of falls. And here's some early work showing, for instance, that the risk of hip fracture for no rails in showers was 4.3 times higher than for showers at head rails, and 2.5 times higher for baths. There's a lot of research that's been done in laboratories sorting out what configurations of grab bars are important and ergonomically sound, feel comfortable for people. They are grab bars that people use when presented with the option of using them. And more recent work on grab bars by Alison Novak and her team in Toronto, where they actually are able to perturb or move the bath as somebody transfers in and out. You can see this woman is in a safety harness to see whether or not they actually can grab the grab bar successfully. The answer is yes, to prevent a fall when they are trying to get in or out of a bathtub. And we know from all this research that for everybody, this is good universal design. This works for all age groups, all abilities, that we need a minimum of 2 grab bars in bathtubs and a minimum of 1 vertical bar for standalone showers. So what's out there? Well, it's a whole mix of things. Here's an example of a shower bath with an acrylic surround, and the grab bar down here is transparent, very small diameter, has a slippery surface, and the placement is really poor. It doesn't really help you get up and down from the tub. Here are typical examples as well. These 2 bathtubs have 1 grab bar, but not the other one. You need both. Here's one where it's very poor placement of the diagonal grab bar in the wall. I think because there was some brick. This was a hotel in the middle here, but it really doesn't serve you well for getting up and down from the tub. Maybe they thought that these alternate bars in the tub would suffice, but they're not graspable. They're in the wrong place. This is what looks like a grab bar. Perhaps you're thinking this is a grab bar. It's not. That just holds the shower so you can slide it up and down. Or perhaps you're thinking this is a grab bar. So if you hold on to either of those, they'll come out of the wall because they're not installed to take the weight. And this one, you'll actually burn yourself as well, as I did when I tried to hold on to it. Here we see an example of getting it right, where there is a good vertical grab bar as you step into and out of the shower. And you can see there's a ledge, which is very common. And there's a grab bar on the inside as well, which is helpful for somebody who has a little bit more difficulty perhaps navigating. People say, well, I can't afford it, but it isn't expensive. Grab bars are cheap. This was a friend of mine who actually installed grab bars and paid only $240 for purchase and installation of, of those bars. And where there's a standalone tub, which we see increasingly, super poles actually can work as a stanchion that help people at least get in and out of the tub. We have much more accessibility legislation in Canada. We're late in getting it. In the US, it was implemented earlier, largely because of vets coming back from the Vietnam War with disability, and that pushed forward the American Disabilities Act. But we now have a number of provinces and the feds who have accessible legislation. And I would urge you to become familiar with that. We have the national code recommendations that are made to the provinces. I could talk about this at length, but I'll just very quickly say that codes are reviewed in 5-year cycles. Accessibility is currently a priority for Canada's code review cycle. And we have work going on with National Standards of Canada developing the standards. So we've got the standards with all of the technical requirements on what we need for grab bars. And here's just another example of illustrations of how to install these kinds of features so that we've got grab bars that are properly in the wall. But we've had a stalled policy change around universal grab bars in Canada that I've had quite a bit of involvement with. In 2007, I was a proponent for a change to grab bars in Canada. I proposed that grab bars should be a universal requirement in all showers and bathrooms. We're now in 2023, and that requirement has not gone through. So what happened in the meantime is that there was a number of technical review committees put together by the Commission on Building Codes to specify the technical requirements for grab bars and sort out what was needed for universal grab bars versus grab bars specifically for those with more physical limitations. It went out for public review before the 2020 code cycle, or sorry, the 2015 code cycle. And what we got was a great deal of pushback from industries, in particular those involved in manufacturing acrylic tubs that don't include grab bars, saying this was going to be a problem for their industry. They could not make the changes very readily. And we heard from many industries about this. In contrast, we got very few comments from those who are part of the public, including, people with occupational and physiotherapy training. And when we got those kinds of comments, they tended to be just very short comments like grab bars are important, but no further justification. What we were getting from the industry was a 3 or 4 page long submissions of their review comments. We have another impediment, which is the stigma that is perceived to go with grab bars. So industry assumes that people don't want grab bars in their homes and that it should be their choice to add grab bars or not. And we also see that this is a situation where the housing sector would have to pay for the change, even though it's not a huge cost, but the health sector actually benefits because of the decrease in injuries. I think we made some tactical errors and encountered some challenges along the way of trying to get that code change made. One was that we overemphasized the problem of this being a problem for older adults, rather than, as I've shown you, this is an issue for all age groups. I had a missed opportunity in presenting this data, for example, noting 5,500 older adults died because of a fall in Canada in 2019, compared to about 220 from the entire population who died from a fire. Why is a fire relevant? Well, a fire is relevant because there's been a lot of changes made to building codes related to fire. Fireproofing walls, requirements for sprinkler systems, requirements for smoke detectors, and so on. So here's just a few other examples of some of the challenges we encountered in trying to make the changes. We underestimated the impact of design trends like acrylic tubs and showers, underestimated the objections we would get from the manufacturing industry. There was actually some pushback from those that we thought would be advocates and allies, like advocates for accessibility, who had some concerns that if grab bars were required, that they might get in the way of other accessibility features for those with physical challenges. And occupational therapists, some of whom felt that perhaps all clients needed to be assessed by an OT for the optimal placement of grab bars. And while I agree that that's really important for people with physical limitations, for universal design, everybody gets the same universal design. And then you can add other grab bars for special needs. The stigma I've mentioned, it's hard to decouple the issues around accessibility for those with physical limitations versus the universal accessibility. We have not driven consumer demand for safer bathrooms. So lots of issues there. So let me just take on some ideas that lead us to some action steps. So what drives consumer demand away from safety improvements in bathrooms? Because I think that consumer demand is critical. So first of all, we have equipment that is still being sold that in my view should not be. It's an alternative to installing grab bars, but it's not safe. Secondly, here's the kind of advertising we see. So even here, where a vertical grab bar could have been inserted on that wall, it's not. There's no grab bar to be seen. And this is a common type of ad, and the issue around warranty, because if you puncture that acrylic wall, the warranty is voided. Here's examples of a very high-end designer home. This is actually the Princess Margaret lottery that's going on right now, and beautiful pictures of this beautiful home. And look at the bathrooms, not a grab bar in sight. So what can help drive consumer demand towards safety improvements? Some ideas. I think we need to profile stylish options that do meet safety requirements. We need to profile stories like this one. This is actually in a home of somebody who's got some chronic illnesses that she and her spouse are dealing with. Her daughter-in-law calls the remodeled shower the spa. Home renovations are a multi-billion-dollar industry. So let's provide questions to consumers that they can ask contractors. And these are just some examples to help them sort out whether they're getting a renovator or contractor who knows their stuff around grab bars. Asking, for example, do you build to accessibility rather than minimum code standards? And what's the cost of making the change now versus making the change later? You have an OT on your team. Funding for home modification programs can be a help. And there are a number of programs. Some reach across the country, like for Veterans Affairs for veterans. Others are, and more of them are province specific. But we need to let people know about those. And Parachute has actually put up a great resource which provides a list of home modification programs across provinces and territories. But there is some changes in those from one fiscal year to another. So that's one of the difficulties in making sure clients have the up-to-date information. People need to be very clear that homeowners and landlords and municipalities can exceed minimum codes. Our building codes that are legislated at the provincial level are minimum codes. We can do better than that. And I think we need to look at ways to support consumer advocacy. For example, in Ottawa, we have what's called the SNOMO program, which is offered by the Council on Aging. They collect data during the winter season. Originally, it was about walkable areas to inform snow removal in our municipality. We have now added steps and stairs to the audit that people use. So we have information about steps and stairs and their adequacy as part of this. Other community audits might be another place to add that kind of information. We can support consumers in contacting their municipality or property owners if they see hazardous stair features on public stairs, or in the case of property owners, perhaps the property owner, a landlord for an apartment unit. Often people have no idea who to contact about these kinds of problems. We can encourage people to ask restaurant and shop owners if their indoor and outdoor stairs meet accessibility standards. I'm sure all of you have been in restaurants where you go down a set of stairs, poorly lit, bad handrails, to get to a bathroom where there's an accessibility stall with grab bars and so on. It is configured to accessibility requirements, but the stairs to get down there are a fall waiting to happen. So I'd just like to conclude by giving you my top picks for action and love to know what you think of these and if you've got other ideas or which of these resonates with you. So not in any particular order, but I think we need better data about safer stairs and bathrooms to continue to inform policy change. Just one example, the Canadian longitudinal study on aging, which is data is collected every 3 years, does not include, in my view, adequate specificity about stairs and bathrooms in their study. Yet that's a study of the original cohort is 50,000 people. I think we need to emphasize the principles of universal access, changes we can make to our environment that are beneficial for all age groups and all abilities, and also emphasize the benefits of visitable homes and apartments. And provinces and territories are concerned about this, so it resonates with the direction in which they're taking their efforts. Thirdly, I think we can look at ways to incentivize fall-proofing renovations to stairs and bathrooms, making those renovations easier and more affordable, and advocating for home modification funding that people can access easily and quickly. We need to engage municipalities in fall prevention efforts. Supportive housing that's going up in our municipalities, new builds, and there's a huge push for this as we know in many provinces across the country. Why not be making sure that all of those new builds actually exceed minimum standards around safe stairs and safer bathrooms? What about engaging organizations who are concerned about worker safety on stairs or in bathrooms, whether those workers be volunteers or others? You know, Canada Post actually is one organization that's probably done the most around worker safety on stairs because they had so many occupational injuries from unsafe stairs. But Meals on Wheels, home care, think of all of the activities that involve going into people's private homes. We could all advocate for provincial and territorial building codes and regulations that exceed the minimum standards. And one particular item I'd like to mention here is that it looks like there will be a public review of a code change to include universal backing in all new homes in bathrooms for showers and bathtubs, but there will not be a requirement, as far as we can see, for the installation of grab bars. That has to be done by the homeowner unless they request it when the home is being built. So this is something that we can really all push for to make sure that the grab bars are installed as soon as the owner goes in the home. And finally, I think we can look at some of those ideas I've presented on how to drive consumer demand for changes. So I really look forward to your questions. I have lots of photos of safe and unsafe stairs and bathtubs and showers on my Instagram site. So feel free to have a look at those and to use any of those that you want for your own purposes. Thank you very much. I'll stop there, Michelle, and we can see what questions we've got.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Nancy. As always, such a great presentation. I love all of the images, making it really tangible. And I know that folks in the chat have shared their thanks as well. So I look forward to you being able to see those as well. We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A box. If you do have questions for Nancy, please do put them there. We'll get to them in just a second. I'll let everyone know that once the webinar has ended, you will be redirected to Zoom and invited to participate in a short evaluation survey. So please do fill that out. It will help us to continuously improve these webinars and deliver you what exactly you're looking for. But I will move on to the Q&As. So this first one, this first question, and I know you probably have thoughts on this, Nancy, and weren't able to talk too much about it just because of time constraints, but they say, could you talk a little bit more about suction grab bars, super poles with drop ceilings, or tub mount grab bars with acrylic tubs?
Absolutely. So thanks for that question. The suction grab bars, and I showed a picture of it, and I had a big red X to it as I did for the tub mounted grab bar. The suction grab bars actually, unless they are exactly placed on a smooth, dry surface, they won't hold their suction. And even when they are properly placed, you may still lose the suction. So they're just not secure enough for people to be able to rely on them. They often also are quite short in length, as you saw. And so having them in a place that actually allows perhaps two different people who live in the same home, maybe a younger child and an older adult to use it, it's not long enough for to accommodate different heights. But I really think they should be taken off the market. I also would just strongly urge anybody who is involved in home care and following up with clients who have had a fall, ask whether or not suction grab bars were involved. And if they were, please report it to Consumer Affairs, because Consumer Affairs Canada is not getting the reports of suction grab bar failures. And without those reports, even though anecdotally we're hearing them, but without the official report, the item stays on the market. The grab bars on the side of tubs, whether they be acrylic or ceramic, have a different problem. One is that they're basically directly in your walking path. So to get over the side of the tub, you have to kind of navigate around that grab bar. And it's not ergonomically the right grab bar for you to help transfer in and out. You need the vertical grab bar for that because you're in a standing position normally when you're getting in and out of a tub. And they don't help you getting up and down in the tub for the same reason. Super poles, there's quite a number of different ones on the market. It's my understanding that they can even work with drop ceilings. They seem to be able to accommodate a lot of different kinds of structures in the bathroom, but you'd want to double check that if you were purchasing one. With respect to the next question, should I go on to that, Michelle, or did you want to read it?
Sure, I'll read it out loud for everyone. And they ask about, are diagonal grab bars of any benefit? I work in a place where they only have diagonal grab bars near the toilet, but clients keep asking for horizontal grab bars.
Interesting. So, and I spoke primarily about grab bars within bathrooms, bathtubs and showers. We know from many different tests of configurations that a diagonal grab bar is more ideal for a bathtub. But for a toilet, I don't know the research on this, but ergonomically, I can sense that perhaps a diagonal bar would not be as easy to use as a horizontal. But I think a lot of that has to do with the user, and this is where, and their abilities, and this is where the input of an occupational therapist might be very helpful to get the configuration that's best for a client who needs to help lift themselves off the toilet with a bar.
Great. All right, our next question brings up a good point. Any recommendations about lighting? They ask specifically about, are sensing lighting, maybe sensor lights really working in terms of reducing falls? And maybe we don't know an empirical answer to that, but
yeah, so by sensing lights, I presume you mean overhead lights, or are you also wondering about lights that light up the stairs? So let me speak to both of those. The underfloor lights or side lights that are used sometimes outdoors or indoors to light up the stairs can help to demarcate where the edge of the stairs is, but they have to be installed really well so that they don't offer a distraction. Overhead lighting is really important. And I guess the challenge with a sensing light is if there's any delay and the light coming on. We've got a bit of a challenge sometimes with LED lights in that the full luminosity is not instantaneous with some LED lights. There's a pause of a few seconds. So LED lights are what all of us have pretty much in our homes right now. But, you know, if you are the stair user, just take that into account. Before you launch down those stairs, you may be stepping down on those stairs before you've got the full lighting. And many stairs require at least two sets of lights, overhead lights, one at the top and one at the bottom. The outdoors is another area where often we do not have adequate lighting. If you think about, you know, just outdoor lights, they're often to illuminate your front door and perhaps the doorbell, but the actual lighting on the stairs is often very, very poor. And the lighting may not be sufficient for people to be able to see things properly. I hope that helps a little bit.
Awesome, thanks, Nancy.
I'll just say with respect to building codes, actually, there's been a lot of talk about lighting and whether or not there should be a specification for stairs on how much lighting is required. And as far as I know, the technical committees have not come to an agreement on exactly what that should be.
Right, perfect. The next question, that we might need a few more specifics to fully answer it, but they do bring up some good points about renting versus owning and warranties. But they ask, in Ontario, I am an owner of a condominium unit. Is there a warranty problem if I install grab bars by drilling on the tiles?
Well, first of all, great to hear that you're thinking about installing grab bars. Secondly, you probably need to check, depending on what your requirements are, if you need any special permission to install a grab bar. That example I showed you where a colleague had spent $240 to get 2 grab bars installed, that actually was in a rented apartment and she had no trouble whatsoever getting permission. Sometimes for the vertical bar, you don't need to drill into the tiles because there's a stud, and it depends how far the tiling goes, but the stud may be right beside the tub and you may be able to drill into the stud for the grab bar without drilling into the tiles. But you need special drills to drill into tiles, and you have to drill through a stud. So that's the main issue of finding a stud, unless there's universal backing behind, like plywood of a certain depth that allows you to securely attach the bar, because the bar has to be able to take the weight of somebody who is actually falling down. So it's even more than your weight, your body weight. It's the physical force of your falling, your weight plus gravity that the grab bar has to be able to withstand. So ask the question, encourage the owner of the condo board to think about this for everybody. Maybe you can get a special deal with a renovator who knows his stuff, knows how to properly install bars. For all those who are interested, you could really start something in your condo building. Good for you.
Great, thanks, Nancy. And we do have one last question, and it's a good one to end on. It's what would you say? Oh, we just had another one come in, so hopefully we have time for it. But what is one helpful action we can take to shine a light on the need for code changes and make sure the needed code changes happen? So I know you had your list at the end there, but if you had one recommendation, Nancy, what's an action that people can take?
Well, there's 2 levels of code change I need to talk about to answer that question. Thanks, John. One is that at the national level, they are making recommendations for the province's code changes because the regulations are at the provincial level. So watch out for the information that will come about the public review of codes, and specifically the public review of codes about stairs or bathrooms and grab bars. And then consider adding your public review comment. and I can't tell you what you want to put in that review comment, but what I would put in my comment and will put in my comment is that I don't think that universal backing alone is adequate. We have to install the grab bars themselves. It's a step in the right direction. So I don't want to have them nix universal backing, but I just think it's so imperative that we have the universal grab bars installed as well. So let's come to the provincial level. The provinces, once they get the recommendations in 2025 for the code changes, they will make their own decisions about regulations. And that's another opportunity to write to the department, your ministry that actually is responsible for code changes. Find out when their public review is going to happen. And again, make your comments about the importance of code changes that are for a safer environment. And, you know, the costs are borne by the health sectors, but they're borne by all of us. If you have a devastating fall, it has a huge impact on your quality of life if you survive the fall.
Absolutely. It is one, we will answer this one last question, but if there are people who need to jump off, thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate it. And we'll get to this last question. So it will be on the recording. And like I said, I'll be following up via email with the recording link, a link to the slides, Nancy's information, kind of everything that we've talked about here today will be in that post email for you. So keep an eye out for that. And our last question, I've noticed that available grab bar widths are specific lengths, and compared to the wall studs, the bar is obligated to be on a diagonal. Wondering what your thoughts are. Are you happy with the lengths of the bars that are on the market, Nancy, or do you have any thoughts around that?
Great question. So first of all, you're right. There are grab bars of many different lengths that are on the market. And I think that's quite confusing for people because they don't know which to pick. And on the vertical bar, they tend to choose one that is too short. It should be and you can go back to the standards to see this that I presented from Ontario, but it should be a long bar that accommodates people of all different heights. The diagonal bar, actually what we know from the ergonomic laboratory studies is that actually a bar on the far wall, so this is the bar you would use to sit down or stand up from the tub, is the diagonal configuration is a better configuration than horizontal. And in part that's because if you think about reaching for that bar, if it's horizontal, then it only is suitable for, sort of for one length of reach. So a child reaching for that, if it's diagonal, can reach for the lower end of that bar, that's within their height. An older adult who's tall, who's reaching for it, can reach for the top end of that diagonal bar, so it accommodates a wider variety of physical attributes. So the diagonal bar is important. Again, it's getting one that is long enough, and the standards as well suggest what that should be. And again, on the market, there are, in my view, too many short bars that are suggested.
Fair enough. Thanks so much. That was our last question in the Q&A box. I did see someone one quick question in the chat. So since I still have you, Nancy, I'll get your opinion on it. They ask about carpeted stairs and whether better or worse. What are your thoughts?
That's a very challenging question because as you know, there are all kinds of carpets, you know, from plush to, you know, very thin, etc. What you want is to make sure that whatever carpet you have does not hide or obscure where the stair edge is, number one. Number two, that it is really secure, and sometimes where carpets are not secured properly is right at where the riser perpendicularly fits with the stair tread. So make sure it's secure all the way up, because otherwise it becomes a tripping hazard. And I would say overall that a less plush carpet is better. And don't forget to wear your shoes and slippers in the house to give you better traction, both on carpeted stairs and on a hardwood.
Fantastic. All right. Well, those were all of our questions. Again, thank you so much, Nancy. More and more great comments and positive comments are coming in through the chat. So thank you, everyone. Those who are still able to stay on the line with us. It was a fantastic presentation, Nancy, and looking forward to having you back in the future.
Thanks very much. And thanks everybody for taking the time to join us today. It's great to see people from across the country.
Absolutely. All right. Have a great afternoon, everyone.